Hello there everyone and welcome back to the Codex. Today we're doing a new player build video incorporating primarily Nezha to show how amazing of a starting frame that he is for people that are just getting into the game and don't quite have some of that later player gear yet. So starting off with Nezha here, let's go take a look at his abilities. This is regular Nezha, not Prime, by the way, so anybody's able to get this. All you have to do to get Nezha is join a clan, and then go to that clan's dojo, and he is purchasable simply with credits, his parts at least, from the Tenno lab in a dojo, and then you craft it with some very basic resources. So looking at his abilities here, his first one is Firewalker, which basically does exactly what it sounds like, and it lights your feet on fire, and as you run around, you leave behind a trail of fire. Does a little bit of heat damage to enemies, which is useful for a few reasons. One, it has a semi-stun effect on them as they kind of flail around when they're on fire. It also strips a little bit of armor off if you're fighting armored enemies, since that's the status effect of heat. And in a very welcome fashion, it also gives you a speed bonus, as you can see here. His Blazing Chakram is one of the best new player abilities in the game. You throw his fiery ring out, and when you hit an enemy with it, it applies a damage vulnerability. So when you see right there where it says damage vulnerability, 185%, that means that the enemy is taking that amount of extra damage. So it's kind of like a inverse damage increase. Rather than increasing the amount of damage that you do, like with Rhino's Roar, for example, you're increasing the amount of damage that enemies take. It also, very usefully, increases the amount of, or rather the chance of them dropping either a health or an energy orb. As you can see there, the health orb drop chance becomes much higher. In fact, I think it's guaranteed. And then the energy orb drop chance is still massively boosted over its regular. And then we go look at Warding Halo here. This is the bread and butter ability of why Nezha is so good, just period, but especially for new players. Because just to clarify, Nezha is still amazing way later in the game. So Warding Halo gives you a basically pool of health over yourself that gives you a 90% damage reduction. Technically, it's a damage redirection. So you pop this Warding Halo, and you take a certain amount of damage from enemies hitting you, and then you see where it says Absorption Multiplier. It multiplies the damage that you just took, and then it turns that into a new health pool for yourself, essentially. 90% of the damage that you take goes towards that instead of you. So while you have this up, you only take 10% damage. Also, super importantly, it makes you status immune. So enemies can't light you on fire, they can't slash you, they can't put viral on you, they can't slow you down with cold procs, and perhaps the most useful of all, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but being knocked down actually counts as a status effect. So if you're status immune, you're also immune to being knocked down. So this is one of the earliest game ways to be able to get knockdown immunity, which is just incredibly useful because, you know, being knocked on your butt is potentially very lethal. Divine Spears is his sort of crowd control ability. As you can see in the image there that was just shown by the ability video, you basically pop it and you impale everybody around you. And for the duration of the ability, they are stuck on the spears there. When they're initially impaled, they take a little bit of damage. And then when the spears collapse, they take a little bit more damage. This one you'll really only use if things are getting a little too spicy around you, basically. And then his passive effect here is that he's slippery, basically. He's a very slippery fellow. We'll go look at the build here. So the build for today for Nezha, the Heck here, the Atomos, and the Xoris, which is my basically new player loadout that I'm showcasing here. And all of these will have no Forma. They just have a reactor and a catalyst, which doubles the capacity of the amount of mod space that they have, but no Forma. So this is the Nezha build here. Like I said, it doesn't take any Forma. The only polarities that are on here are the ones that he already comes with. I would recommend putting a reactor on him. It is worth it. And especially with things like Nightwave, for example, it's or the occasional gifts of the Lotus that they do, it's not that hard to even get them for free anymore. And this would definitely be a frame as a new player that I would recommend putting one of the first ones that you're able to get on. So looking at the build here, in terms of the Aura mod, which if you're not aware, like if you are an actual like new player watching this video, Aura mods, when you put them on a Warframe, they don't actually cost capacity. They actually give your Warframe extra capacity. So that's why this is a has like the little up symbol there next to 14. It's actually giving me 14 more capacity. That's why I have 74 total modding capacity instead of 60. So if you put a matching mod here, it like the mod will have a price, like it'll say 7, but if it matches the polarity, instead of getting cut in half like mods that have a cost, it doubles the amount of extra capacity that it gives you. So he comes with a Naramon polarity at base, which is the dash looking one there. So you can put corrosion projection up there, you can put energy siphon. There's anything that matches basically that you have put there just to get the capacity. And then we're using intensify and transient fortitude for our strength mods. Adding more strength will increase both the amount of health that you can get on your warding halo and the damage vulnerability that you can apply to enemies via your blazing chakram. For the defensive mods, we are using steel fiber and vitality, which gives you some armor and health. You can actually, amazingly, the fact that these both are maxed out and fit on a no former build is incredible. But obviously, as a new player, rank 10 mods can cost quite a bit. So feel free to lower the amount that you level these. Like, just level them to 7 or 8, for example. And that will dramatically reduce the amount of endo and credits that these two mods cost by just taking a few ranks off. And it really, in the early levels and even into the later game, won't affect how good he is whatsoever, basically. I actually, as a test, I took this build to something called Steel Path, which is something you unlock way later in the game, where the enemies start 100 levels higher. There's more, they have more health, more armor, more shields, but the main thing is that the enemies were 100 levels higher in Steel Path, and there's way more of them. And this build still survived. So if you can survive that on Steel Path, you can definitely survive the regular star chart with taking a few ranks off of both of these. They were using Flow for the extra energy, of course. Streamline just cuts down on the amount of energy that we spend. Hunter Adrenaline is amazing. You get this from Cetus on Earth. You can also use Rage instead if you somehow get Rage first. It does this, basically the same thing in this mod. Whenever you take health damage, it copies a portion of that damage that you take, and it gives that to you as energy. So combining this with the extra energy orbs that you can get from Blazing Chakram, making enemies drop more energy orbs forcefully, plus just the regular orbs that they would have dropped anyway, you have basically no energy issues. And if you really want to go crazy on him in terms of energy, there's a mod called Equilibrium right here, where at least when it's maxed out, health pickups give plus 110% energy, and energy pickups give plus 110% health. What that means is, if you pick up a health orb that's worth 50 health, for example, it will give you 55 energy as well, because that's what it means. It gives you 110% of the health orb's value additionally as energy. So, given the fact that he generates health orbs guaranteed from Chakram, this is literally infinite energy on Nezha. It's incredible. But even this build right here for general use will be just fine. We'll go on to the Atomos here. The Atomos is and by the way, Nezha has no mastery rank requirement. You can use Nezha literally at rank 0, so you just have to get him. The heck here, let me go ahead and actually quickly pull up the master rank. I meant to have this ahead of time here. So for the heck, you do have to be mastery rank 4 to use this, so this is still a very early game weapon. I believe that is 4 for the heck and the Xoris, and then 5 for the Atomos, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the heck build. It's a very good shotgun. It's you can get it early on. You can just get the blueprint off of the market, like the marketplace on your ship, that is. And you'll see here there's a mod called Scattering Justice. This mod is different from the others. You get this from the Steel Meridian Syndicate. This gives 200% multi-shot and +1 justice. What it means by justice, it shows you the pop-up right here. Gain affinity to fill the Steel Meridian meter and trigger a 25-meter blast explosion, which I believe does 1,000 damage, and restoring 25% health and increasing armor by 15% for 30 seconds. Now, fun fact, that extra armor that it temporarily grants you will actually buff Warding Halo on Nezha because that scales with armor. So this mod, you don't have to spend any plaid or anything on it. mean, you can. It's probably not that expensive either. But you can just join the Steel Meridian Syndicate and get to a high enough rank where you can buy it for 25,000 Syndicate rep. Because this is a huge damage increase on this shotgun. Like you see down here where it says my total damage is 13,000. Watch what happens when I take this off. Yeah, it goes down to 6,800. Along with having much worse effective status chance from having so much less pellets. Then we're using Hell's Chamber here. This is, of course, just more multi-shot. This is the regular multi-shot mod. So this takes us up to plus 320% multi-shot. So that is, of course, quite effective. And then Charge Shell is just the regular 90% electric mod. Toxic Barrage is the 60-60 toxin damage and status chance mod, which all of these toxin mods, like all four for the rifle, pistol, shotgun, melee, that give 60% toxin, 60% status chance, they all come from Vor, Corrupted Vor in the Void. When you go to the Void here, any mission that you do that's level 40 or higher, let me turn that off. Any mission you do that says it's level 40 or higher, Vor, like Matsurava, for example, Vor is able to spawn in, and when you kill him, you will get one of those 4 toxin mods. So it's not hard at all to get. It's literally guaranteed. It just rotates between which ones he drops. And again, that's another example of something you could probably just ask a more experienced player for. A lot of these mods that you're going to see on all these builds here, you could probably just ask someone more experienced for, because they're not, worth a whole lot. Most people have tons of duplicates of them. So yeah, and the players are quite helpful. Scattering Inferno here, this would be an example of one of the potentially harder ones to get. This comes from what's referred to as Tier 2 spy missions, which is Bodis on Ceres, Amalthea on Jupiter, Valak on Europa, or Dione on Saturn are the missions that would drop this. It's not hard to get. You just, a lot of people don't like spy missions, but once you, get used to them, they're actually quite fast. So yeah, this is a corrosive heat build, as you can see. That's what happens when you have the electric and the toxin, and then a heat at the end. I think this is pretty good for generic damage. It'll be good against armored enemies. It'll have good upfront damage against them, and then it would also have a armor strip effect from both corrosive and heat, because both of those effects have armor strips. So this is quite good for the early game. Moving on to the Atomos here. This is a viral heat build instead of corrosive heat. So in terms of the mods on here, that could be a little bit harder to get. Lethal Torrent here, that comes from Nightmare missions. The C rotation Nightmare missions. What that means is any of the missions that are currently Nightmare missions on Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Eris, or Sedna. Those are the Nightmare missions. Now, what Nightmare missions are is you'll go to navigation here, which I'll go ahead and show you. And for example, one of the planets that I just said was Sedna. So if I go to Sedna, you'll see that one of the missions here has a little red highlight on it. And you click on it, and along with the regular mission, it says Nightmare. And now it's the same mission. They're both interceptions, but this one's a little higher. And it says Nightmare Mode Timer Enabled. Every time you do a Nightmare mission, it has a modifier on it, a negative modifier. In this case, this one means that you're timed. As you kill enemies, you get time back on these missions. So basically, you either have to do these missions fast enough, or make sure that you're getting kills as you go to add back to the timer. So those are Nightmare missions. And then every time you complete those, you get a guaranteed Nightmare mod from their drop table, depending on which plants that you're currently on. So we'll go to the Xoris here. The Xoris, of the 3 weapons that I just showed you, this is the one that will really carry you through the start chart and into Steel Path and whatnot. This weapon is incredible. So I do have, you'll see that I have 7 formas on mine, but that's because I have a higher end build on this, so ignore the incorrect polarities and whatnot. This build that you're seeing on screen costs no forma. You can fit this with 0 forma, so don't worry about the polarities here. So Volatile Quick Return here, this one exclusively comes from Deimos. That would be an example on this build of one of the harder ones to get. And the Corrupt Charge is a vault mod, so that comes from the corrupted vaults on Deimos using the dragon keys. In regards to all these builds, by the way, I'm going to have my links to my Overframe profile showing all 3 of these builds. And then in the notes of those builds in Overframe, I'll have like information and links to all of the mods on any of these builds that might be harder to get and describing how to get them. So this is, again, a viral build, but the Xoris is a thrown melee. It's a glaive, basically. Now, one of the reasons why those are really strong is when you throw them and then you manually detonate them, they each have a forced status proc. On the Xoris, it's electric damage. So even though I'm modded only for viral, this is actually doing viral electric, because when I detonate it, it still has my viral on it that I modded for, but then it's also doing electric. And it does it in a huge radius. So if you do a charged explosion, it's a 12-meter radius with volatile quick return on, because that adds 3 to it. So otherwise, it would just be 9. And I'll showcase this too. You'll see how amazing this is. Yeah, so that is the builds there. We're going to go ahead and go to a mission. I'm just going to teleport in there real quick, and then I will showcase how good this is. All right, welcome back. So, I am now in one of the hardest missions in the regular star charts. Speaking of the Void earlier, where that guy Vor spawns, I actually went to Mott Survival in the Void, which is a starting level 40 mission, and the enemies here actually deal triple damage. So if this build and these weapons can work here, you know that they can work for you anywhere else in the star chart. Let's go ahead and get this started. I just triggered the survival here. So I'm actually going to wait to cast my Warding Halo, because if you remember, the amount of health that it gets can scale with taking damage. So now that these guys are shooting me, now I'm going to pop it. And you'll see I got a little bit of starting health there, and then it pumped all the way up to almost 15,000. So now on the bottom right of my screen there, that 14,000 that you see, 90% of the damage that I'm taking has to go through that, and only 10% is actually hitting my health. As you can see, this weapon, it's literally one-shotting these guys. It's so good. That Scattering Justice is just insane. And if they didn't die in one shot, which I don't know if I'll be able to find anybody here that doesn't, but you'll see that it puts a ton of status effects on them. So the second shot, for example, will do even more damage. Now let's go ahead and pull out the Atomos here. So this is a chaining beam weapon, which I didn't mention in the build here, but check this out. When you shoot this at somebody, it links between multiple nearby enemies. So you don't even have to aim at everybody that you're going to kill. And it does wonderful damage for just being a Master Rank 5 weapon with not even a full build on. I mean, there is literally mod spaces on this build that are blank. See, that guy was a little beefier there because of his overguard. So here's another person with an overguard. So let's throw our Blazing Chakram at him to apply that damage vulnerability. I think I actually missed there. So now he's vulnerable to damage. Now I'm going to shoot him, and you'll see that he takes plenty of damage. One shot, basically, even through some of his overguard still left there. So I'm going to turn Neza's first ability on. You can see you run around and you leave a blazing trail behind you. It causes a little bit of a stun effect, like on this guy here. So that gives you, a little bit of crowd control, a little bit of survivability from making them not shoot you for a moment. And then it does a little bit of damage to them, but it also strips armor because it's applying heat to them. So some of these guys are already nice and vulnerable for you. Ignore the fact that I'm orange critting right now. That's because of my companion giving me temporary buff, so this weapon won't typically do that. And now, for my favorite weapon in the loadout, check out the Xoris here. Throw that, and then detonate it. Three dudes just died. Just look at that guy with full overguard on. He's roasted. Although that was, again, partially because of my... Okay, there we go. Now the proc wore off. Now this is just the regular damage. 31,000 damage. 41,000 damage. Look at all these guys dying. Boom. One throw, and you just killed like 5 people. That's how good it is. Let's go ahead and throw some guys up on spears here. Look at that crowd control. If things get a little too hairy around you, just throw that out. Oh, want to see something real fun too? While you have enemies up on the spears here, if you hit them with the Blazing Chakram, it multiplies the Chakram. So you can hit multiple enemies, even dozens of enemies, depending on how many there are around you, with a single throw of the Chakram, and apply that damage bonus to all of them. Or it just kills them outright. You see there. They barely even had to... I only shot one of those guys. The rest of them just died from the chakram itself. Now, another cool thing about the chakram, if you throw the chakram out, and then you press it again, you teleport to it. You can also hold to cast it. You have a charge throw of it, which does, I believe, 4 times the damage. And you can just tear through some regular enemies here. And then if they don't die, they'll still have the damage vulnerability on them. So here's Captain Vor spawning in here. Remember I said that if the mission's level 40 or higher, which this one is, that you can get a Vor to spawn? So you'll see that when I kill him here, he will drop, guaranteed, one of those 4 Toxin dual stat mods that I mentioned. And look at how easy it is to kill him with this loadout. If he you know, stops trying to hide from me, that is. Let's go ahead and put that damage vulnerability on him. And there he goes. Got some Orkin cells too, which is always amazing as a newer player. And I did get, at least I should have gotten, one of those mods. There we go, Toxic Barrage. That's the shotgun one. So that's 60% toxin damage and 60% status chance for shotguns. You will always get one of those 4 mods when you defeat him. So yeah, not hard at all to get. Yeah, so hopefully you guys have an understanding now of how absolutely amazing Nezha and these weapons are. The Heck, the Atomos, and the Xoris. You can have this full loadout with no Forma, owned and completely built up this way by the time that you're just mastering 5. And Nezha you can start working on right away, just the frame. But like the frame plus all of these weapons, you can have and be doing this kind of performance as early as Master Rank 5. And the reason I say 5 is because that's when you get the Atomos. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I hope you guys enjoyed the showcase. If anybody feels that I missed anything, obviously, of course, leave it in the comments. And for anybody who made it to the end of this video, I want to, for one, thank you just for watching my video, maybe watching some of the other ones. It would obviously mean a lot of you subscribe, but you don't have to. I want to earn that, of course. So if you think this video or any of my other videos has earned that, then feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, etc., things like that. But regardless, I would love for you guys to leave a comment down below. Tell me, how did you get into Warframe? Was it a friend who was already playing? Did you just, you know, you were just browsing games to play and you saw on the free-to-play list? Was it from advertisements? What got you actually into the game? And anybody who leaves that comment along with their in-game name, as in their name on Warframe, I will send you both a Orkin Catalyst and an Orkin Reactor. And if you don't know what those are the 2 things that... the Orkin Catalyst, they double your modding capacity on weapons. And Orkin Reactors double your mod capacity on Warframes. So it'll help you out putting this build together, for example. Now, I would prefer, of course, that only players that actually need those things, you know, leave the comment and ask for them or whatnot. Because I want to help the people out that actually need that. So yeah, the first 10 people to leave a comment saying how you got into Warframe, because I always love hearing that. I love new people coming into the game. And leave your in-game name behind. Those first 10 people, I will send both of those things to help you out. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next Codex video.